What we're talking about here is this Mark 18. Now this Mark 18 is actually set up to be a clone of the gun that I was issued when I was on the teams in MARSOC, and it's kind of a unique setup. So I just want to go over it with you guys and talk about what the gun is, what it isn't, the things I could upgrade versus the things I could not, and go from there. So first off, like I said, this is a clone. This is not an actual Colt or FN lower. This is not an actual Mark 18 upper. This is actually a 10.3 Criterion core barrel that they made for us a long time ago. It's an arrow lower. I'm not into all of those very specific nitty-gritty things when it comes to making a clone. Just kind of wanted to look the part. In fact, this is a single dot EOTech, so this is not, you know, a perfect clone, but it is very similar. Before we get into the exact setup of this gun, it is important to note that we got issued multiple uppers with multiple optics, multiple lasers and lights. So what goes on this gun is kind of a balance between what has to go on the other upper, and it's kind of a preference thing. So that's why you're going to see what's going on here. So obviously the traditional setup is PEC-15 with the light on the side, this sort of thing. This is kind of a clone of the other upper that we got issued. So vast majority of people got non-FSP 14.5s. This one is an FSP. They did float around MARSOC. I did see them, but they were pretty rare. I never got issued one except in training, not on deployments. But anyways, this is the clone of a PEC-15 and the Surefire Scout light that we got issued. And generally speaking, guys were running this light and laser on this upper and not the Mark 18. With that being said, that makes setting up laser light on this gun a little awkward. So I want to get into that in a second, but we're going to start from front, go all the way to back, talk about the upgrades of the gun, talk about, again, what I couldn't upgrade and what I did upgrade and why. So obviously we have Knight's Armament corn cob suppressor with their muzzle device, nothing we can change there. And then we get into the most unique part of this gun, and that is the laser light setup. So we had a Surefire Scout light or the Insight light that can go on here, this being like a Vampire Surefire light that's made by Insight. But what's cool about this is that it takes a crane plug. So we have this dual pressure pad here that is my favorite. It's the easiest pressure pad to use in my opinion still to date, even though this guy is super old. And that's actually the main reason why it went on this gun. I generally carried this gun more than anything else. I was a communicator on the teams, so I was doing radio stuff, and having a long gun just was a little bit more difficult to carry around comparatively to a Mark 18. And on deployments, if we had to get any work done, it was generally done with heavy weapons, not with small arms, because all of our engagements were 800 meters plus. So even on deployment, this kind of served just as a PDW thing, carried it around because we had to, and just in case type thing. So thought that being said, this was my primary gun comparatively to the 14.5. I did carry the 14.5 with a Mark 8 CQB-SS for a while, but again, this is what I carried most often just because of the sheer size of the Mark 18. I can get this guy really small and be able to move around vehicles and whatnot a little bit easier. So with this being my main setup, I wanted the activation of light and laser to be very easy and very optimal for when we did CQB training, and that's exactly why it's set up the way it is. So this light set up this way blocks the vis laser on the PEC-16. So if I wanted to zero this thing, I would just take the light off, or I would just zero it under nods and call it good. The illuminator goes right over it, doesn't splash. The IR laser goes over it, doesn't splash. And then we don't care about the white light on the PEC-16. Obviously that would be in the way. But with this pressure pad, what's really cool about it is with both of these devices taking crane plugs, if I activate the light, it's just a single click, momentary only, but if I double click it like a laser, it's constant on. And I wish more lights did that today. In fact, this is the only light that I'm aware of. There's probably other ones out there, but Surefire's mod lights don't do it, but this one does. And that is very cool because I hate having to do a click button or having a separate button like on a tail cap or something to go constant on with the light. So being able to double click and just go constant on is really cool. And then obviously the other button goes to the laser, and this negating, you know, not using the white light on the laser or the vis laser, this laser works just like any other PEC-15. It's just a little bit blockier, a little bit heavier, not as good looking. Now, the foregrip, we got issued these foregrips. I'm pretty sure we got issued these. Well, anyways, I had one on the gun. Maybe it just came with the kit that I got. Someone could have bought it before they got issued that kit before me and just left it with the box. And then we also got issued actually these Magpul angled grips. So I did bounce back and forth between these Magpul angled foregrips and this guy on the Mark 18, but ultimately ended up using this foregrip more often than not. Now this foregrip's here just for a reference point on my hand, and that's really it. Do you need it? No, absolutely not, but one that kind of looks cool, and even having a cool looking gun when you're in the service is still pretty important, so that's why it's there. Now, iron sights today, a lot of people think you don't need iron sights, and that's fine. If you don't think you need them, you don't need them. They take up no space hardly at all in this gun, especially with how laser and light setup's going on. EOTechs die, lasers die, so if I have the space, the gun's already like 30 pounds with being a RIS 2 and everything going on here. I'm just gonna keep the iron sights on there. They are no hindrance whatsoever. Going back from here, standard EOTech, like I said, this is a single dot, but we got issued, obviously, the standard EOTech. Magnifiers, so M33 magnifier, if I remember correctly. We actually didn't take these on deployment because no one was actually using them, but in training we had them, and I wish we did, but you know, I'm not the guy that makes a call. I was, like I said, a communicator. So now on the other side of the gun, we're gonna talk about all the small nitty-gritty parts on the gun that I did change and the parts that I did not. Now, there's obviously a lot of different things that you can do to this gun to make this gun even better, and there's some things with this being a government issued rifle that I could not change. For example, trigger packs and safeties, because it being a machine gun, those things we just did not mess with. We could not change. Can't change the buffer to an A5 buffer, not changing end plates or anything like that. So it's mainly just small things that you can take off and change quickly, are the things that we generally did. So the sling attachment points, we have clasp hooks here, and this is the way I attached my sling. Now, generally speaking, I did not run my sling in this manner. This was just when I was on the range and we were training, doing CQB packages or anything like that. When we were actually shooting and training, this is the way I ran the sling. But majority of the time I ran the sling towards the end of the gun because as a communicator, I did other things with my hands besides shooting. Most of the time I was, you know, communicating, flying drones, stuff like that. So I would have my sling attached to the end of the gun just to keep the gun more secure to my body. I could throw it over my back and it'd be a lot tighter. And also during RNS operations and in training, the noise reduction between the 550 cord compared to the metal was obviously advantageous. But the sling itself, this is one thing that I did not have because the T.REX arm sling did not exist at the time. I had a Blue Force non-padded Vickers sling. I actually have it on the table over there. It is just stiff and full of sweat and Iraqi dirt, so just not worth showing the video. But if I could go back in time, and I could bring a T.REX arm sling with me. I'm not biased at all towards T.REX, obviously, but I do think the T.REX sling is the superior sling out there for what it does for the price and the size of it. So that's the way I would have gone. Now let's start with the stock here. So the stock, this is the B5 stock that was issued, the exact one. Actually, this is actually an exact clone. We just painted it green. And I would change this out. Now, given the salary that we were making in the military, probably would just keep it because this does work as is. But the angle of this butt pad being straight comparatively to almost every other stock out there is just not my personal preference. So I would probably just get the other B5 stock, the slimmer one, or I don't remember what it's called. Yeah, just the slimmer one that has an angled butt pad and also has a QD point. So obviously QDs are superior to clasp hooks, and that is definitely an upgrade I would do. I would do some QD attachments on every point of the gun if I could. Now, like I said before, the end plate is something we could not change. So either we had mil-specs end plates or this clasp hook design here. So I would just, you know, deal with that, keep a hook back there if I had to. Now, the pistol grip is something that I did change out, obviously. Now, this is the actual pistol grip that I was using on deployment and training, on both my deployments and all the training I did. I actually found this grip on somewhere. It's like in one of the gun boxes I got issued, like the Pelican that we took on deployment. It was just laying in the kit that I took on my first deployment. So just ran that. This is the Magpul, like Miad, I think, something like that. There's no tang on it. There's no cover of the trigger guard. It's just basically an A2 grip made by Magpul that's a little bit thicker. And obviously I would change that. Now, we didn't have a fancy trigger guard like this Magpul one. We had mil-spec. Now, the issue with mil-spec trigger guards is they create a pretty good hot spot on your finger if you don't have a pistol grip that covers that. Now, some people just say, oh, you know, deal with it, be a man. If you know, you stake your manhood in your ability to deal with a mil-spec trigger guard, good for you. I don't care about that sort of thing. I'd rather just have a pistol grip that's a little more comfortable and a little more advantageous. So with that being said, I would just go with the BCM pistol grip. It does cover that really well. So does the Tango down grip. So probably go with either one of those. And so that would be the difference I make there. Now, what we have here is a bad lever. Bad levers weren't all that common, and shooting super fast and reloading super fast actually isn't all that important either. But I saw the use for them back then, had one on there, and we got one here on the clone. I'm pretty sure my guns had ambi full auto safeties. This one is a non-full auto safety because this is not a machine gun and non-ambi. Don't really remember. Obviously, ambi safeties weren't all that important to me back then. We did have gas buster charging handles. These are definitely an improvement to the mil-spec. Ours were black, not FDE, but this is the one we got in the armory. The triggers that we had in our guns were full auto 2-stage Geisley triggers, if I remember correctly. I knew they were Geisley triggers. I wasn't a gun nerd back then. I actually couldn't even tell you if I had a Colt or an FN gun. Couldn't tell you any of that stuff. But I do know we had Geisley triggers, so even if I could change it, I wouldn't have. Geisley triggers are what I have in all my guns today. So with all that being said, that's basically all the upgrades to the gun. The only internal part we could really change on these guns is the buffer and buffer spring. So I'm pretty sure we got issued H1 buffers in the guns. No one really ever changed those out, but what you could do is change them to Geisley Super 42s. That's just gonna make the gun shoot a lot softer and then obviously reduce your chances of malfunctions in the gun. Wouldn't change anything with a bolt carrier or anything like that. Obviously can't change the rail. Now there were guys that actually took personal uppers on deployments. Like I said, I wasn't a gunner, didn't care that much about it. So there you have it, guys. That is the clone of the Mark 18 that I was issued and kind of how I set it up. Now, are Mark 18s outdated? Some people say yes. 11.5s are definitely becoming more popular than the 10.3s. But that being said, though, Mark 18s are incredibly reliable. They are, yes, they are overgassed. They're combat gassed. I'm pretty sure you can throw mud in this thing, take the gas rings off your bolt, and as long as you have some lugs left on your bolt face, this gun will keep on trucking along. So there's a lot to be said about the Mark 18 and just its sheer reliability and durability that just never stops running. So there's not a ton of things that you can change with this gun to make it, super modern. But what you can do with this gun is get out and train and still be super efficient, even with an old, very heavy gun. So until next time, guys, Brandon at T.REX Arms.